why are you deciding to run for governor here in 2026?
Yeah, well, Texans are tired of Greg Abbott's performative culture wars. They want a governor who will focus on the things that matter, our schools, our hospitals, and our infrastructure. All three of those things aren't doing very well at all. Texas is doing great. We have the best land, the best people, and the best food, but our politics is really messed up. And so as governor, I'll be focused on the things that really matter to Texans: your neighborhood school, your local hospital, and infrastructure that will keep you and your family safe.
Democrats really took a huge hit in 2024. Those results heavily favored Republicans in every aspect. So this is really the first rebound that Democrats have following 2024. I've noticed, in your campaign website, you talk about you're an independent Democrat. You want to go after those independent voters. How do you appeal to them to convince those independent voters move away from Republicans and vote for a Democrat?
Yeah, Dylan, I'm running as an independent Democrat because we need to bring progressives and moderates together. And we also need to invite independents into our party. So the Democratic Party is a big tent party. It just needs to be a little bigger. You're right. 2024 was a tough year for Democrats. So I'm running with open arms. I'm ready to work with anybody on any issue that's facing our state. A lot of times in the political chatter, you get focused on just one extreme or the other. Right now, 70% of voters who vote in the general election in November, they didn't vote in the March primary. So one of the reasons why we get these extremist candidates and extremist leaders ultimately is because we only have the extremes voting in the primary. So we can end extremism just by voting twice. So one of my messages here is that, hey, we all need to vote twice in the March primary and also in November. If we do that, we can end extremism. And quite frankly, I don't care which primary you vote in, whether it's the Democratic or the Republican. I just want you to vote twice.
What kind of issues would you prioritize, and what kind of issues would you like to tackle as governor?
Sure. So I come from a family of teachers. My mother was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher, my sister was a teacher, and most importantly, my wife was a teacher. So if I don't get schools right, I don't get invited to dinner. So the number one budget item for the governor of Texas, the largest budget item, is education. So that's where you should spend most of your time. Our governor today spends most of his time on these culture war things to divide us. But great schools, everyone wants a great school, whether you call yourself a Republican or a Democrat. You want great teachers. Math doesn't care which political side of the aisle you live in. So, sending $1 billion of public money to private schools, the private school voucher plan that Greg Abbott just did, is ridiculous. It's interesting that he had to primary the moderate Republicans out of his party to shove that down our throats. In my opinion, if you remember Happy Days, Greg Abbott has jumped the shark. He no longer represents everyday Texans. And that issue, in addition to others, that issue is really makes it really, really clear that he no longer cares about our public schools. We need a governor who will put that first. It just so happens that my father was also governor of Texas back in the 80s. He put education first, and he did it at a time when the Texas economy was, quite frankly, pretty weak. Oil went from $40 a barrel to $8 a barrel. But he made the investment into teachers, teacher pay raises, smaller class sizes, and no pass, no play. And those investments have paid off over the last 20 or 30 years. That's the kind of governor I'll be. I'll make the investments into our school systems that will pay off for the next 20 or 30 years.
You ran for governor back in 2018. You went to a runoff in the Democratic primary. You fell short there. I'm curious to know, did you learn any lessons from that experience that you'll apply to today?
Dylan, we came really close back in 2018. And so we're picking up right where we left off. I do know this. Texas is a big state. But we're going to represent and we're going to go get the votes from everybody from Abilene to Austin. And so in this race, it's a race about ideas and it's a race about who the Democratic voters think have the best chance to beat Greg Abbott in November. I think in 2018, we spent a lot of time talking about identity politics. We spent a lot of time talking about things that, quite frankly, it was sort of like an all or nothing situation, whether it was with women's health issues or with borders, defunding the police, all sorts of stuff. And we got nothing out of that because we need to nominate candidates who represent the whole state of Texas and who can win in November. I think I'm that candidate. I can work whether and talk to voters in Abilene just as well as in Austin. And that's what I'm doing now. And that's what I hope will make this a successful campaign.
You're already speaking with voters. What have you been hearing from voters? What are their main issues that they want to talk about?
Yeah, just recently we saw Greg Abbott activate the Texas National Guard and send them to Illinois. So here's the thing. I live in Houston. I'm in the Gulf Coast. Um, it's hurricane season here. I don't know if you know that, but if you live in the Gulf Coast, when you say it's hurricane season, it gives you chills because you just don't know what's going to happen. That National Guard needs to be ready to serve Texans and not play political games in Illinois. So voters, that's what they don't want that sort of political performance. They don't want any more of those culture war games. It's tiring. It's a lot of noise. And you know what? Also, it just divides us. We need a leader who wakes up every morning and finds ways to unite us. Because as an entrepreneur, I spent 30 years building businesses. The secret to being successful in business translates into government as well. You have to be a team builder. Nothing big, nothing important happens from one extreme to the other. Neither political party has an exclusive on good ideas. We have to work together. I have a track record of doing that. And so that's part of the message that I'm sharing with Texans when I'm asking for their vote.
Talk about extremism. It seemed that in 2024, it was the year of the extremes. We got on both ends of the spectrum. And of course, it showed that Democrats did not prevail in that strategy. You talk about we need to vote, you need to elect somebody in the Democratic primary who has the best shot at beating Abbott in a November election. He's a political juggernaut. He can raise money. His last three elections, he's won by almost 1 million votes each time. I know you say you're the best candidate to do this. Can you just explain just why is that? Why
Yeah.
should we believe that you can go and take on this political juggernaut in Greg Abbott?
Absolutely. Greg Abbott represents only the extremists in the Republican Party. And that means if I'm living in Lubbock, Texas right now, and I see that $1 billion of my public money is going to private schools, we may not even have a private school. My kids may not go to private schools. That's a complete waste. If I'm living in Abilene or Corpus Christi, and I'm wondering why the hospitals have closed, I can point a direct line between Greg Abbott turning down $100 billion because he didn't expand Medicaid. And the simple reason why he didn't do it is because he didn't like the name Obamacare, right? That's $100 billion. Now, Greg may not care about the lives that were lost because he held back $100 billion from healthcare, but he should care about the dollars. Those dollars were flowing through hospitals, and those hospitals supported communities in Texas, and you can't get them back when they've gone bankrupt. Those are the core jobs in the community. The last piece of that, and this affects every Texan just as well, no matter where you are. During Winter Storm Uri, when the pipes froze and we almost all froze to death, it was crazy, right? Well, you couldn't turn the power on because the gas couldn't get there because the gas pipes were frozen. Well, we have these things called price caps in Texas. Normally, electricity sells for about 4 pennies a kilowatt. The price cap is 900 pennies. Greg Abbott kept the price cap for 5 days at 900 cents a kilowatt. You know who's paying for that? We are paying for that. All Texans are paying for that, and we're paying for it over the next 30 years on our electricity bills. Our kids will be paying for it. So these issues, schools, hospitals, and infrastructure affect us all. I call this the Greg Abbott tax. So we're going to share this with voters, and they're going to realize he just represents the extremists. He's playing games and culture war games. He's a culture warrior. I'm a problem solver. So anyway, I do want to share one thing. My son, and the reason why I'm running for this race right now is I thought about running for the past few months, and I wasn't sure what to do. It's a huge toll on a family. Okay. On July 4th, my wife and I got some really scary text messages, like a lot of parents got. My son was at a camp not far from Camp Mystic. He was a counselor, and we didn't know what was happening. He was in one of the hardest hit cabins, and no one could find him. So we, of course, raced down there and found out that he and his three counselors had, in the middle of the night, saved about 37-year-old boys by swimming them into the rafters. They'd been woken up in the pitch black dark, and the water went from 4 inches to 9 feet in about 30 minutes. And these four young men saved those boys. When I found out that what he had done, of course, was tremendously proud of him, thankful that he's still alive. But when I found out that my neighbors had lost their daughter, my neighbors, and I found out another friend had lost his family, it's very disturbing. And here's the truth. The truth is Kerr County had been asking for flood equipment for a decade, multiple times. This was a risk that they knew they had. And the state said no every time. And after that, that's why I'm running. I'm running because of my son almost dying. I'm running because of my neighbors who lost their children. Greg Abbott is great at, coming out after the catastrophe has happened, but he's not really good at preparing us before the catastrophe happens. That's the governor I'll be. That's why I'm asking for everyone's vote so we can make these changes. We don't have to live like this.